If you want to blow up your productivity as a developer, then this is the video for you. In this video, I'm going to cover the following things. First, which tools and agents am I using and on which plan am I? Second, what kind of Markdown files do I have set up and what are the coding conventions? Third, which commands did I install and what is Superclaude? Fourth, integrations and MCP servers. 5, how I use Git Worktrees to work on multiple issues at the same time. And lastly, prompting and my actual workflow. Okay, let's discuss tools, agents, and which plans I'm on. As an AI-powered IDE, I use Cursor. I'm on the Pro plan, which is currently $20 per month, but I got a yearly subscription, so I'm saving a couple dollars there. But to be honest, that was definitely a mistake because everything in the AI space changes so fast currently. So if you don't need the couple of dollars, just stick with the monthly plan. And Cursor recently improved their autocomplete via tab, and it got super fast, so that's definitely a really good tool. I use OpenAI's ChatGPT for general discussion, general questions, brainstorming, and everything that is not so code related, or to double check the other AI's work. Here I'm on the team plan that is $25 per seat, and I get that from work, so that's kind of nice. I don't have to pay that. For coding, I now use mostly Claude Code. And there I'm on the max plan with 5 times the usage limit. I use Claude Code for my day-to-day development, and I will show you later the exact workflow that I'm using. Overall, that brings us to quite a hefty bill of $135 per month, but it always just depends on the value you get out of it. Let's talk about code conventions and Markdown files. The most important Markdown file by far is the Claude MD file, which sits in the repository root. This is auto-generated by Claude if you run the command /init, and basically tells Claude everything about your repository, what the architecture is like, how he can run commands to run tests, to run the build, to run the linter. And we extended this file to link to a directory called .ai nodes. And in there, we have various notes and guidelines for Claude to remember and to adhere to. And for example, we tell him here, follow the development workflow documented in AI nodes development workflow, follow the code conventions in AI nodes code conventions, follow the structured workflows and AI nodes workflows. This is basically the power upgrade for Claude in your repository. Let's check out these other files. For example, the coding conventions are like our coding core principles. Readability is super important. Remember type, safety, avoid the any type. We don't want Claude Code to write any all over the code base, and also we want to avoid the type assertion. On top, we mentioned some modern patterns to flow, domain-based services, dependency injection, DTOs, as API objects, integration testing, and so on. Then we have here the development workflow, what kind of branches Claude should use, how he has to work, basically how to start a new feature, what he has to do before making changes. So always run npm install, so he has the relevant dependencies for that branch. Then while developing, to run the linter, run the test, and check out that all the test works, and what to do before committing and how to write commit messages. Then the workflow is in general basically that he can start with a feature implementation and is supposed to make a plan for himself with a planning step, and then is to create some steps for himself, and then basically go into the steps and work on each step, and when he's done with the step, go back to the main list until he has the feature done. And the last Markdown file we have here is the Claude nodes, and that contains nodes of previous issue resolving. So when we worked with Claude on issues, we tell him, okay, write what you learned down, write the insights down. This file grows over time, so at some point this has to be shortened, but for the beginning, it's really good context for Claude Code. Next, let's get to Superclaude and commands. Superclaude is a development framework for Claude Code. You can find it on GitHub. I will put all the links in the description. And what this does is basically it superpowers Claude. It gives you more commands than already exist. We will talk about that in a second. Then you have additionally a couple of personas for domain-specific things. For example, a UX expert, a security expert, an architect expert. You apparently use less tokens, and there are some built-in MCP integrations with which tell Claude to use the MPC servers. This is super easy to set up and install and add some more Markdown files additionally to those that we have in the repository. You have now additionally some Markdown files in your home directory under the... Okay, let's check it out in Claude. In Claude, you have commands like clear built in, which clear your conversation history and free the context, which are super useful. Through Superclaude, you have many more commands. For example, analyze, build. Analyze can be used to analyze something in the system. As you can see, there's always a description to it. You can deploy something, you can clean something up, you can develop something, you can build a new project, you can do something with Git. So you have a lot of extra commands. You can add some spice to these commands with flags. For example, if you run the test command, we can tell it our focus on end-to-end tests, which will tell Claude to now, for this session, work on end-to-end tests, and then we can put in a persona. Let's put in the software architect, and that definitely improves our prompt. And now you would write your typical prompt. Okay, now let's talk about integrations and MCP servers. If you're not sure what an MCP server is, I will link another video where I explain that. But MCP servers are basically a standard way to enhance these LLMs with the capability of executing tools. There's a great GitHub repository with a lot of MCP servers, which stand for Model Context Protocol. For example, they allow Claude to use dynamic and reflective problem solving through thought sequences. Other MCP servers allow Claude to interact with the file system. And there are so many, for example, also to work with GitHub, other MCP servers to work with component libraries or to work with linear, for example. That's why MCP servers are a great way to add additional capability to your Claude code and also personalize it for something that you exactly need. As you can see, the list is huge. Let's check out which integrations I have. In Claude, you can list your MCPs by running the command /MCP. There you can manage your MCP servers. As you can see, I have 4 installed in this project right now, which is Context 7, Linear, Magic, and Sequential Thinking. Context 7 is a great MCP because it gives you the latest documentation for all the frameworks you're using. So you are not restricted by the knowledge cutoff, but you actually get the current documentation, which is sometimes really helpful because things change in the frameworks. And as you can see, the MCP server is right now connected. Here you can see also the arguments, and it adds 2 tools to your Claude Code instance, which can resolve a library ID and get library docs. Another example would be Linear. It just connects to Linear via an MCP server, which means, let's check out the tools. It's 23 tools, so a little bit more. It can list comments, it can list cycles, documents, list issues, and get an issue. That's basically the most important ones because, as you can see later, I use Claude to directly read a linear issue and basically work on that and discuss that. Yeah, then I have Magic, and Sequential Thinking allows Claude to not just go straight ahead and run forward with the prompt, but actually think it through and then execute. Now let's discuss Git Worktrees. In comparison to different branches where you can have in one repository only checked out one branch, Git Worktrees creates a whole copy of the repository. So you have basically a folder with all the files for one branch. So you have a work tree for main, which contains all your main branch files. Then you can have a work tree for the next branch and another work tree for a third branch. And this is amazing because it allows you to have checked out different branches of the repository at the same time, which means you can run Claude multiple times at the same time. You can have him plan some maintenance work in the one work tree, then you're working on your current issue in your main work tree, and then you're doing even something else in a third work tree, which basically parallelizes a lot of your workflow. Okay, let's get to the most interesting part, which is my actual workflow and how to prompt better. The first thing I'm doing when I'm in a repository and want to start working on something new is I create a work tree. For that, I created a command that automatically creates a work tree on the same level as the main repository because I don't like it nested in the repository. And command checks out a branch from the main branch, then it creates the work tree, then it goes into the work tree, then it copies over the .env file, then it creates the .claude directory and copies over the Claude settings that I already have enabled. So for example, allowing ls commands, allowing npm commands and stuff like that. In the main work tree, we check out the original branch again, which in this case would be main. Then we change the directory to the new work tree, and over there we then run npm install, so we have all dependencies installed, and if there's a pre-dev command, we also run that. So let me demonstrate that for you. I just aliased it with GWA, which stands for me for Git Worktree add. I can share it also with you guys on GitHub. We're gonna add a new work tree. Let's call it Claude test work tree. And as we can see, preparing work tree, new branch, Claude test work tree, just checks out the main branch, copy the .env file over, and then runs npm install because there's no npm pre-dev command. And as we can see, we are now inside the Claude test work tree directory. We can see here's the .env file, so that is copied over. Here's the .claude folder with the settings, the local ones, and as we can also see, node modules are there. So basically we are ready now to run Claude, and we do this by just running the Claude command, and then it asks us, is everything okay? Do you trust this work tree? Yes, we do trust it, and now we can work with Claude. And I like to prompt with Super Whisper. So first of all, I run the command. Let's say for now we start with the explain command. We can pass a flag, let's call it sequential. It's just SEQ, so it thinks a couple of times about that. Now I like to dictate my prompt with Super Whisper. Super Whisper is a tool that captures your audio input, streams it to an LLM, and gives you back a cleaner version of it. All double words are removed and you have white clean text. So let's try this out. Explain to me the usage of the Monaco editor in this project. As you can see, I quickly dictated prompt. You can see it put in, can you explain to me the usage of the Monaco editor in this project? That's perfect. I don't even need to correct anything. And now I just run this and wait. And while I do that, I usually start another work tree, which I'm not going to do now, but you can imagine how this works. So this is now explaining something or maybe planning some maintenance or whatever. And I would go into a different work tree, run Claude again and say, okay, let's work on this particular issue. And then I would just say, okay, use linear and put in the issue number 1234, and then we go. So I work on multiple things at the same time, and this is such a productivity boost because, as you can see, it just runs in the background in the other tab. It can take now 5 minutes, it can take 15, it can take 20. I don't care because I'm just working on something else. And I also think this workflow is especially great if you're not only coding, but also have to do some organizational work, answer emails, plan some meetings, prepare some other meetings. Then you can still have Claude Code for you while you prepare your organizational work. That is definitely a great productivity boost. And if you think this video was helpful, I would be happy about a like and subscribe. Otherwise, let me know in the comments how you use Claude. I'm always interested in learning how to further improve it and how to further automate this. And yeah, see you in